সুপ্রিয় দর্শক সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি টিভিএন 24 টেলিভিশন আয়োজিত নিয়মিত অনুষ্ঠান দ্য টিভিএন অ্যানালিসিস। আমি হাবিব রহমান আছি আপনাদের সাথে। আজকে বেশ অনেক গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট আপডেটস নিয়ে আমরা আলোচনা করব। তার অন্যতম একটি থাকবে স্টক মার্কেট। যারা স্টক মার্কেট ইনভেস্টর আছেন, উই উইল হ্যাভ সাম গুড ডিসকাশন অন দিস। কি হচ্ছে মার্কেটে, কেন হচ্ছে, হোয়াট শুড ইউ ডু, দ্যাটস ওয়ান থিং। real estate সিচুয়েশনটা কি, কারেন্ট সিচুয়েশন অফ দ্য রিয়েল এস্টেট, ওয়ার উই আর অ্যান্ড ওয়াই উই আর, কেন আমরা এখানে আছি, এটি কি বাড়ি কেনার জন্য একটি উত্তম সময় কিনা, সেটি আলোচনায় থাকবে। আরও হচ্ছে ট্যাক্স ডিডাকশন ফর রেন্টাল প্রপার্টিজ, এটি থাকবে। এখান থেকে আমরা Cdpap PCA দুটি একটু যাব সেখানেও, কারণ সেখানে বেশ কিছু পরিবর্তন এসেছে। অনেক প্রশ্ন এসেছে আমাদের কাছে, যেটি আমি মনে করি ভ্যালিড প্রশ্ন, অনেকের মনে থাকতে পারে, এবং এই প্রশ্নগুলো উত্তর দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করবো। আমি আশা করি ইট উইল হেল্প a lot of people, অনেকে এটি সাহায্য সহযোগিতা করবে বিভিন্নভাবে সঠিক সিদ্ধান্ত নিতে। আমার সাথে এই সমস্ত বিষয়ে to discuss all these things in the studio, join me with today's program, Michael Mutazadi, CPA.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again. I know you are tired, you are busy, you have to run from your office.
Of course.
Just to make it. Just to make it.
We had one of the biggest days for that.
Yeah, you look tired. I have been working since morning. I'm tired, but we have people who are waiting for many of your expertise that you're going to share with us. I want you to start with the stock market. What is happening in the current situation? Why is it happening? And what should the investor should look out for? And then I have a few other questions that I'm going to come to you.
So I'm sure everyone's seen that we had a huge drop today, right? That is probably one of the biggest drops since COVID, right? But what is going on right now is we're about to hit what they call basically a tariff war, right? So that is causing chaos in the market. It's putting fear, right? If you look at the 10-year treasury, right? That's with T-bills. Everyone's going into that. That's why you guys seen the T-bill drop below 4%, okay? We haven't seen that since probably 6 months ago, right? When the rates were real low, before Trump got into office. So what can we do to protect ourselves, right? In this situation, right? So you saw the tech stocks are getting hit, right? We all love our iPhones. That's going to be a real problem coming soon. How Apple's going to take care of that, we don't know. You guys also see what's going on with Tesla.
Correct, of course.
But that's not so much on the tariffs, right?
Right.
So look, the way to protect yourself is you got to say, okay, everyone's leaving the stock market. They're going to really hard assets, protected assets like real estate, right? Real estate's protected. They're going to gold. They're going to, commodities. Like you got to protect yourself in a situation where you say, okay, what do I think is stable, right? What is a stable asset right now? It's obviously not equities, which are stocks, and it's definitely not crypto. Okay, that's not where we want to be. We want to be hard assets. Hard assets, I mean, something you can touch. Right? I can touch real estate, right? I can touch gold, right? That seems to be a big selling point right now.
Okay, so why is this happening? Many people are saying this is happening because of Trump's tariff. You just touched on one thing, that iPhone, which is you can buy it for $1,000. Soon it could be $2,000 if the tariff stays the way it is.
It's not just the tariffs, okay? It's the other countries that are coming against us, right? So China, which is basically everything we have, right? They're saying they're going to put what is like 34%.
Correct.
Right? So that's another fear, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest fear. That's where we think the iPhone is made. It's not made in the United States.
Yeah, of course
right?
not.
It's made in China.
Yeah.
Right? So everything's going to become more expensive. Okay? And what happens when there's a tariff war is, look, then you have political instability.
Of course.
Right? And that's really where the fear is.
Which creates uncertainty.
Of course. And look, the stock market hates uncertainty.
Of course, because you don't know where you're heading.
You don't know where you're heading. We don't know what the next moves are. We don't know who's going to back down first, right? Chances are, we know this president pretty well, right?
Green light, red light, red light, green light.
No. So what I want everyone to do is, look, you shouldn't be going into like all these equities, right? You got to protect your assets. I've had multiple clients come to me and go, oh, I made this huge gain of $80,000. They lost it 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And guess what? They got to pay taxes on the 80.
Because that was the capital gain.
That's correct. Okay, so my suggestion is for, especially everyone I've been talking to, look, buy stuff that's buy real estate, right? Because you guys understand real estate. It's a simple asset. And I'm not telling you guys to buy it in New York, right? You could buy Ohio, Pennsylvania, something that has some stability to it.
The whole real estate thing I'm going to come back around because this is a bigger part of our discussion. I just wanted to, you just mentioned a few things. So one thing you mentioned is that the turmoil that you see, it is, you have to be wary about this. You have to know what is happening and don't invest in cryptocurrency like volatile assets or commodity. It's not an asset. I'll call it a commodity, crypto. And then you got to be very careful. So we hear all the time, buy low and sell high, right? So a lot of people, they're saying the stock market is getting into a bear market or it's already in a bear market. And when everybody runs, you should jump in and buy. Should you go all out or should you have some patience and be watchful and thoughtful about it?
No, so if you're going to do this, you want to do something called averaging, right? So you buy, say, every week as it's going down, you're buying. So yeah, you're averaging where the low is, right? That's going to give you a much better play as the market comes back.
Okay, if you were to tell your current viewers that, hey, you need to stay away from certain things.
My suggestion with this is, look, history repeats itself.
Of course.
Okay? So this is not the first time we've been in this situation with tariffs.
Yeah, of course not.
Okay? So the best thing to do is look at what did well back during the tariff wars.
Very good point. Very good point. So people who are watching, you should look what happened to the last tariff situation and then what went up or what went down.
Correct.
And then base it on that.
Correct.
Base it on that and then make an educated guess.
Because, again, as we say, history repeats itself. This is not the first time, right?
Oh, well, unlike this time, I would say differently. This time is very radical.
It is very radical, and everybody's just trying to muscle their way.
Yeah, muscle their way, piecing out the information and trying to make sense out of it. Because even if you make U.S. cars, for example, except for even Tesla, you have battery packs and all these things coming from other parts of the world. You have the GM and the Chevy and whatnot. The motor.
Look, I wouldn't put my money in like consumer goods.
Okay.
That's what I really would not.
I was trying to get to that part of it.
Okay.
Right. So this is where you have to be very careful. Very, very careful. Things that come down has to come down. It's just a matter of time, how long or how fast or how prolonged.
It's really which country gives up first. Honestly.
Yeah. So who blinks first?
That's correct.
Whoever blinks first. Okay. So that's one thing. If you are an investor, you already said pay attention to what happened the last time. And make sure you base your decision on top of that.
Correct.
Stay away from volatility, stay away from those crypto assets, and go hardcore on physical assets. Such as
hard assets. Something you feel like you could touch, that's something that's here.
Not out in the air.
That's correct.
Okay, so I will just leave it at that. Because there's a lot more. It's a developing story.
Of course it is.
I mean, the stock market just lost $6 trillion in 2 days.
It's been, that's like exactly, today is exactly the same as when COVID started.
Yeah, so, and that's why they actually had this comparison saying, hey, it's, since 2020, this is the biggest loss.
Of course.
And I'm not surprised. I mean, that was forced on us. And I mean, nobody shut down the stock market.
Correct.
But it was forced on us. And this is self-inflicted.
This is definitely self-inflicted, but at the same time, that we had no historical evidence.
Correct.
We had no idea which way to go, right? But this time around, we actually have historical evidence only going back to the 1900s.
1930s, 𝗧𝗕𝗏
But we had this before.
Yeah,
this happened.
Definitely. The last time I was checking, going back to 1930s, 𝗧𝗕𝗏. I'm not sure if they came up with.
I wasn't born then.
Okay, all right, I was. So I was looking up, and then these two geniuses came up with 30% tariff. So what they did in the back in those days, they said, okay, you know what? Forget about the income taxes. We don't have income taxes, but we're going to collect money from the foreign countries by putting a tariff. And you know what it did? It lowered the export, lowered the import, of course, and it actually the inflation jumped up, and unemployment went from 4% to 16%. That's the historical data.
Right, and there was also one, I think, in the 60s as well. And that's
that's more recent.
Right, and that's the one I'm pointing with.
Okay.
And that's one I think everyone should at least study to see. Because you look at the 30s, the 40s, look, Everyone invested in railroads back then.
And there was no income tax back then. So now we do have income taxes. So there are other situations and stuff like that. Let's get into something else. You touched on real estate market. How's the real estate market now? Because I mean, when it comes to regular real estate, purchasing your house and or second properties, it's just becoming unaffordable as time progresses.
It is, and now that the Treasury is going to be below 4%, I think.
The interest rate is going to be below 4%. You believe so?
No. The Treasury bill.
The Treasury notes, right? You're talking about.
So when we were doing loans at say 5.5, right?
Right.
It was at 3.7.
3.7.
The T-bill was at 3.7 back then.
Okay.
Now we're getting close to that again.
Which is 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years? 10 years.
10 year is
the 10 years ones that goes with the 30 years mortgage.
Correct. That's the way everyone should look at it. Right. So as people leave the stock market, they go into the treasury market, right? It starts going down.
Yeah.
They don't need to raise it to attract investors.
Correct. So when the short-term treasury bill goes higher but lower, and then the long-term goes higher, they call it an inverted curve.
Correct.
And should you be
the best way to remember this, guys, is a unhappy face.
Unhappy face, except for those two eyes. Now, should you be? If you were
those are recession signals.
Correct. So should you be careful about that? Should you be worried about this?
We've had an inverted yield curve for a while.
I think we have been in recession for a while now.
Very like this.
Yeah.
We're going
now
to start. Now we're going to see what
the curve will be more visible.
Correct.
Okay. So in this scenario, are you safe with the real estate buying?
I think you are safe because look, now as you just said, hey, everything's so unaffordable, blah blah blah, right?
Correct.
All that stuff, right? But now it can become affordable if the rates come down again.
Yeah, because
so what does that do? So the prices are going to stay where
they are, more likely, and then the rate's going to come down.
Correct.
That makes it cheaper to buy.
Cheaper to buy, correct.
Okay,
so the real estate market itself is its own animal.
Yeah, but people say this is where you don't lose money in the long run.
So here's the trick with real estate, right? Very easy. If you say, hey, listen, I'm going to hold this asset for 7 to 10 years,
right.
It doesn't matter when you buy.
It doesn't matter.
No, because you're going to average your way out.
Okay.
Okay, that's long term.
Long term.
Right, but if you say, oh, I'm going to buy and flip a house, this is not the time to do it.
This is not the time.
It's that simple.
All right. So, any advice as a tax advisor for the people who buy properties and rent it out? Any advice for the renters and for the rental properties?
As a tenant?
Not as a tenant, as the owner.
Right, as the owner. Look, I do want to touch on this because I have been seeing it this year, with especially all the new clients coming in. Everyone needs to be careful with what they call depreciation, right? Yes, it's a great expense. We get it now, but if you sell that, once you sell that property in the future, all that depreciation becomes added back into capital gains. So you're basically helping yourself today, but might really damage yourself in the future.
Really?
Yes.
How so?
Depreciation recapture.
Oh, because your valuation is going up.
Well, no, it's a non-cash expense.
Okay.
Depreciation, right? So eventually it will come back and hurt you as capital gain.
What do you do?
That's the thing. So you say to yourself, do I really need to take that now? What is my benefit? So that's why I always work with my new clients, like, okay, when are you going to sell this property? If you're never going to sell this property, don't worry about it. Take the depreciation.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, right? Or you say, oh, my kids are going to inherit it. I don't care, right?
Okay.
That's fine. Then don't even worry about it. But if you say, hey, listen, I'm going to sell this thing in 2 years, and I'm going to take depreciation, well, it's going to hurt me in the long run.
Okay. So your advice would be?
My advice would be, it all depends, again, back on what we were speaking about your holding period.
Right.
If you're looking to sell your real estate in the next couple of years, I would say you should back down on that depreciation.
Two things you mentioned. One is it's okay to buy a house. It is okay time. You may wait a little bit longer if you are looking for the rate to come down.
Exactly. I think the people who already bought with those really high rates,
right,
you're going to see the opportunity that I've been talking about for the last 2 years that finally may actually show up.
So people who bought it and waiting for refinance,
correct,
their golden time is coming.
It's coming. It looks like it's coming.
Should I call it golden time?
Could be.
It's a better time.
Hey, if your interest rate's 11%, it's a golden time.
Yeah. So okay. 11 to coming down to 6% or 5%, right?
Right. But I'm saying to you, it's there. We're close to it. But it all depends how long this tariff war goes on.
Right. So today, President Trump was saying, hey, lower the interest rate to Treasury Secretary Powell. And he said, no, I'm not going to lower. This is not how it works. The economy doesn't work this way. Any comments on that?
Yeah, because look, he really can't dictate where the interest rates
He
go.
mean Trump.
Trump.
Okay.
Right? He can't. He has no power. Okay? He's zero. Okay? But he tries.
He
right?
tries.
They already announced
To muscle his way in.
Exactly. But they already announced that this is going to happen.
Right. Right.
But the more he does what he does, I think we're going to see the mortgage rates drop lower and lower.
Okay, so if you were to time it, I know it's very difficult to time the market. However, if you were to time it, and if anybody who's watching right now live or maybe after, and saying, I'm just waiting for refinancing to get a better rate, what would be your suggestion to that person?
Oh, it's very
what would be the wait period?
It's very, very simple, right? It all depends where your interest rate's at, right? If you're at like a 6 1/4, your time's not coming up that soon because you're going to need like a low 5 to make it work.
Okay.
Right? But if you're in the 7s,
so that makes
8s,
sense.
and everything else, your time's coming. So you want to make sure your tax file is prepared as if it's going to happen. Okay?
I'm going to stop you right there. You just brought in a very good point. Let's make believe, I am waiting to refinance. I'm hoping that interest rate comes down below 6. I bought it at 9 or 11, which is outrageously high. So it's a steal for me. If it comes down to 6% or 5%.
This is what I've told all my clients this year, okay? The ones especially, because I know there's rates off every single one of my clients.
Correct.
Okay? I say, listen, if I think it's going to be a possibility, I say, look, we're going to put the tax file in extension. It's not going to hurt us, okay? It doesn't cost anything to do an extension, okay? Unless you owe money. Right? So you just at least want to pay what you paid last year, right? Your tax.
Correct.
Right? You can protect yourself. And guess what? If it doesn't turn out to work, we file the taxes.
All right.
We have till October.
That brings me back to the taxation again. Okay. If you haven't filed the taxes yet, today's 4th, 15th is the last day for individual, but you can take an extension. And if you are preparing or thinking of buying a house or refinance, what would be your ideal suggestions? Because at the end of the day, this person is hoping to lower his interest rate. By lowering interest rate, he's going to lower his monthly payment significantly.
That's correct. That's exactly what it is. You're going to save at least a couple $100. Some people are going to save $1,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
Just file an extension. It's not going to hurt you. I encourage people in this situation.
Take an extension. Don't rush it.
I encourage people. And also, people who have rental properties, it's even more important that you want to take an extension. Why? Because mortgage companies do look at the last year tax file, whatever that rent is, they only take 75% of that. When you put the repairs in, you put all the other stuff in, that actually hurts you. Doesn't help you.
So you may think that's benefiting you, but it's really hurting you.
Really hurt you. Because now they're going to go against your income on that.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's what I'm saying. Have a good CPA that knows what they're doing with this.
Correct.
Especially if you rent the properties.
So if let's say you have filed something last year and you haven't filed, you are telling wait and see approach, take an extension, take it easy, your time is coming, and your better time most likely is coming.
Correct.
As an individual who's doing Uber and Lyft has, let's make believe that.
Even more so.
Even more so.
Yes.
Take the extension.
Take the extension. I have said this to every single client this year.
Because I know a lot of people who reaches out. They reach out to me saying, "Hey, I took a commercial loan. I want to make it a conventional loan. I have the down payment in control, and is it coming? The rate coming down?" So if you're listening, then what Michael Mutazzi is saying, your time is coming, and the rate's going to come down. Question is, will you be prepared? One of the best way to prepare here is if you haven't filed your taxes. Don't worry. Don't file it. Take an extension. That's exactly what you said.
And you must take an extension. I'll explain to you why. The banks do not like to see that, hey, I just didn't file my taxes. Take an extension. It costs nothing. Whoever does your taxes, they should be more than happy to file an extension for you.
Okay. So I'm going to leave it up to them.
I'm going to give one more thing.
Of course.
Okay? One more thing. People who are commercial loans or have these high interest rates, please check your documents. Make sure you don't have a prepayment penalty.
Yes or no? Let's move on.
All right.
Keep going. Finish it.
Oh, finish it. Okay. So if you have a prepayment penalty, it may be a great time to refinance, but guess what? It's going to cost you a fortune. It could be 3% of the loan amounts. That's $15,000 on $500,000.
Right. which can bring down your payment to $1,000.
But you know what I'm saying?
Lower your
but
payment
that's going to cost
$1,000.
Cost a lot of money.
So even if it comes out of your pocket at $20,000 in one-time expenses, but
we have
over the period of the loan,
we have to do the math.
I'm just saying a number. I'm just throwing a number. Let's say at the end of the day, your penalty is $20,000.
Yes,
but if you worked out the paperwork properly, filed the tax properly, and if you work out the numbers properly, your resubmission for the loan, right, refinancing for the loan, could lower your monthly payment to $1,000. Up to $1,000.
We want to make sure there's a benefit, bottom line.
Yeah. It has to benefit me. Don't refinance just the sake of the refinancing, right? So that's what you're saying.
You guys got to be payment sensitive, not rate sensitive.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that I had many discussions with you that don't rush through your paperwork. You can't have both ways. You cannot have maximum return to yourself because you're filing taxes, and then also hope to refinance your house.
Correct.
What would you tell them?
Correct. You can't have both, right? There's going to be a happy medium, right? But again, if you decide not to refinance for whatever reason,
right,
then you get your big return.
Yeah.
It's a win no matter which way.
Either way.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to one of the questions that's coming back to me a lot. Home care extension of Cdpap.
Right.
Home care. They have extended the time. Now they're saying in the beginning they were saying it's 1 month.
Correct. It was supposed to be March 28th, then it was the end of April.
So they're extending more times, right?
Correct. So it's real simple because people are not prepared. They have not prepared. The they thought would convert,
for the transition.
Did not.
From the transition. Somebody says, what is the news for Cdpap? Cdpap PPL under চলে গিয়েছে? Is Cdpap under PPL? Please clarify.
Cdpap is turning into PPL.
Okay.
It's very simple, right? Cdpap is just turning into PPL. Nothing's changing, right? You're signing up online or you're registering using your phone. It's very simple. You just got to go through the forms. I've done with multiple clients this year and the last month. It's a very simple process.
Right. So, MD Rahman, আপনার প্রশ্নের উত্তর হচ্ছে yes, Cdpap is under PPL এখন PPL চলে গেছে অনেকেই ট্রানজিশন করতে পারেননি তাদেরকে সময় দেওয়া হয়েছে আরেকটু সময় বাড়ানো হয়েছে বাট আজকে সন্ধ্যা 7টায় দ্য ভিউজ অনুষ্ঠান করেছি সেখানে আমি বলে দিয়েছি শেষে কিভাবে কি করতে হবে very simple process very simple process. What does that mean for PCI?
So look,
for the home care and for the provider.
Listen, the people who are not in the PPL, right, the home cares are non-PPL, the only choice is PCA.
Right.
That's their only choice. That's the only way they're going to make money.
Okay. So, there are many things that I want to discuss, but I don't want to discuss again because may not be appropriate.
Okay.
But there were people who are bringing in other people to a home care agency and they were benefiting as a job.
Listen to me, I've had this discussion.
Okay.
Okay? I've had a very big discussion. And I was told, yes.
When you say you had this big discussion, you don't have to name names.
I'm not
who that could be.
Right, a very big home care marketer, right? They brought a lot of people to a home care. They got paid for doing that, right? They got big commissions for every hour you worked. They told me the reason they're pushing everyone to PCA is it's real simple. They're not going to get paid anymore. It's exactly what we said last 2 months.
What is their new tactic now?
Just push PCA.
Okay, and just like we saw before, in differently, no regards for rules and regulations.
Correct. Then you got the other people saying, "Oh, you take care of my mom."
Right.
Right, and then that's how they do it.
Yeah.
Listen to me, it's not going to be tax deductible. It's not for you. PPL is easy. If you are getting the home care deduction, it's a simple thing. I'm going to PPL.
All right. I have some questions. You're a CPA.
Go ahead.
Today is your exam day.
All right, good.
All right, let's go. I was stopped and harassed by this man saying, we are talking about PPL and PCAs a lot, but we are sometimes misleading by saying, that nobody can do PCA in the same household if the patient and the caregiver stays in the same household, same address. True or false?
So that's a really gray area. Okay?
How so?
Because this is a developing situation, right? So technically, what does IRS say, right? IRS says you have to be part of a Medicaid waiver program.
Correct.
Right? The two people must live in the same house, okay? But the problem is, under PPL, right? You can take care of your relative, right?
Your mom, your dad.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. Under PCA, you cannot. So it comes down to who can you take care of.
Right.
Right, and some people are saying, okay, it's my stepmom, it's this. It may be a gray area that actually might end up working, but how many people is that going to be? 5%?
3%, 5%? Yeah.
It's not even worth going that route for the general public, especially who we're talking to now.
Okay. What you gave?
Going to say PPL.
MD Ripon says Cdpap extension for September extension. That's correct. They extended it 6 months, which is correct.
Oh, because last time looked at
Yeah. So thank you, Mr.
But that's very good.
Yeah, Mr. Ripon, MD Ripon, আপনাকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ. Okay. Question. Stepchild. If someone is a stepchild, he is allowed PCA to provide service to that stepdad or mom, even if they live in the same household and in the same address. Correct? False? What is it?
Look, I would tell you that's one I think may fly, may work.
It may work.
It may work.
So this is one of those.
But how many do you got like that? Not many.
I learn every day.
There you go.
You know, so it's one of those.
It may work, but that's a very sliver of the population.
Right. These are some exceptions.
I mean, look, that's for thousands of people, right? I always ask, who you take care of? Mom and dad.
Right.
That's what I get.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't get
All right.
step-parent or this. I don't get that.
It's very uncommon even for Bangladeshi community to have a stepdad, stepchild.
Look, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's the bottom. So, another probability or exceptions. Okay. Niece or nephew and grandchildren can provide the service to, and this is, even the Cdpap comes up and says PPL, the rules, and we have this letter sent out from Kathy Hochul's office that anybody who's doing PPA, they are actually doing for their parents or relatives in the same household, cannot switch the same person to PCA. We had this letter. I can share with
there was a whole letter that she released that basically says, hey, listen, this is true, this is false, and that's what the cease and desist letters of the home care agency all became about. That's
Correct.
why there's 17 on that list.
Right.
We all know who they are.
Who they are, of course.
Okay? But bottom line is, they're putting some bad information out, confusing the public. This is what the whole thing is nuts about.
It's so frustrating that, without naming names, some of the owners came out and they're reading as if I don't know how to read, or I don't know what it means, and they intentionally feeding wrong information. It's so unfortunate, right?
It is.
Going back to that same question, it says, he says that, and I had no answer because I didn't know. So niece or nephew, even the grandchildren, even they are doing their PPL for their grandparents, can actually leap from Cdpap to PCA without any legal issues. Do you think so?
Well, of course they could do that. That's what the home care market has been trying to do for the last 2 months. Move you from PPL to PCA.
These are the home care agencies are trying to do. Right.
So why wouldn't you be able to?
Meaning you should be able to.
You should be able to. That's one thing, right? But if you look at what basically the home care deduction is, it's, hey, do I live in the same house, right? And is this patient part of the Medicaid waiver program? If the answer is yes, relative or non-relative? I'm going to put an even spin on it for you.
Okay.
Say it's your friend.
Say it's my friend.
Say it's your friend. You guys happen to live in the same house.
Yeah.
You take care of him.
Of course.
Deductible.
Even in the same house.
Same house. You deductible or not deductible?
Not deductible.
Wrong.
Deductible.
It doesn't say, hey, it has to be relative.
Okay. And this is PCI.
No, this is just what it was, right?
Okay.
Cdpap at the time.
What it was. Yes. Non-deductible.
Okay.
I agree with you.
It is deductible.
It is. Okay.
Part of the Medicaid waiver program. Right? What does IRS say? When we send these nice letters out. Send a home care letter, home agency saying, hey, is this person part of the home Medicaid waiver program?
Yes.
And there you go. It doesn't say this is the father or the mother. No. And it says, show me utility bill.
Yeah.
Show me your ID. Show me your social security cards.
Okay.
Here you go.
So there's a caveat to it. The one you're talking about is taxation rule. The rule of taxation.
That's why we're talking about it.
Right.
There's no other reason we're talking about it.
I know. I know. So as far as taxation goes, they do allow this, and they do fall into deduction, and they get benefit out of this. Now, PCA service, if it's in the same address, generally speaking, again, will not pay federal taxes and state taxes. So this is it got me really confused.
Wait a minute. No, you're correct, and you're not correct.
Okay.
They're not going to pay. They're not going to pay their state and local and federal income taxes, but you're still paying Social Security, you're still paying Medicare, all that stuff you're paying.
Right.
That you're paying. That's what I'm saying. So yes or no, right?
Again, PCA service, if it is in the same address, do not have to pay federal taxes and state taxes.
I think this
just like
I think this is going to work.
This is going to work.
I think this is going to work.
People who are listening. So when
look, this is the developing situation. Okay?
The developing situation.
Look, we're not going to find out about this for
until
at least 6-7 months from now.
Okay, but these are the theories.
These are correct. Everyone is trying to figure out how can I still get this home care deduction?
Yes,
and still be able to make good money.
Good money without paying taxes. We all love not to pay taxes. We tried. That's why you are. So that's why I got you. Okay, so these are legit way.
These are legitimate ways. These are actually, believe it or not, these are good ideas.
Good ideas. Really great ideas.
I give people credit for this.
Of course. And you know what? This is how you learn. Now, when it comes to, you already said it, which is, look, what are the percentage? What are the percentage of the people who will fall into this category?
I guess you're correct. But here's another thing. There are many families that we all know that, hey, the uncles live together. The grandparents live together. Right? The kids live together. Nieces and nephews. Everyone lives together. So,
okay.
That could be a good.
We're towards the end. I'm going to take one question from here, and there are many people waiting. I'm going to take one question on the phone.
Ahead.
So, Mohammed Rahman, he said, my home care provider did not pay me more than a month now since I moved to PPL. What should I do? Okay. ওকে আপনাকে একটু ওয়েট করতে হবে একটা সেকেন্ড ওকে ইউ নো হোয়াট আমি আপনার প্রশ্নটা নিয়ে নিব আপনি নাম বলে প্রশ্নটা করুন আপনি যদি স্পিকার থাকেন দয়া করে স্পিকারটা বন্ধ করে ফোনটি হাতে নিয়ে কথা বলুন আপনি কি আমার কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছেন
জি আমার একটা প্রশ্ন ছিল ওই যে Cdpap PPL গেছে থেকে আরো সময় বাড়ানো হয়েছে কি
জি was there an extension yes অবশ্যই সময় বাড়াচ্ছে আপনার কাছে সেপ্টেম্বর পর্যন্ত টাইম আছে ওকে
সেপ্টেম্বর পর্যন্ত সময় আছে যখন যেভাবে সেভাবে চাকরি করাই
না আপনি আসলে ট্রানজিশনটা করে নিয়েন আপনি মানে খুব ভালো হয় আপনি যদি করে নেন আপনি যদি ওয়েট করেন ইফ ইউ ওয়েট রাইট কোনো লাভ নেই ট্রানজিশনটা হয়ে যাওয়াটা খুব দরকার কিন্তু আপনার হাতে সময় আছে ইউ হ্যাভ টিল সেপ্টেম্বর আপনার সেপ্টেম্বর পর্যন্ত সময় আছে ঠিক আছে ওকে
You want to go back to the original question?
Yes. The question is, you know the question.
I know the question.
Okay.
Look, if you haven't got paid for a whole month, I don't know which home care agency this is, but look, you need to contact the people at PPL or you got to contact New York State. Say, hey, I didn't get paid. You know, there's going to be a lot of steps you're going to have to take, unfortunately.
Right. Another question. He is doing PCA and wants to go back to Cdpap.
That's what everyone who's switched already, we've been trying to stop this. So what they need to do is contact PPL and see what is the procedure to do the switch.
Very simple. You go log in.
That's what I think it is too.
It's very simple.
Everyone's so scared. And that's also the bad news about the home cares. They're just scaring everybody.
What I notice is the patient first needs to go, create an account, log in, and pick his or her PA. Personal assistance, and then that person has to provide an email or a phone number. Once that happens, they send out an email to that
So
PA.
what I think is going to happen,
and PA signs in,
right? But I think what's going to happen is it's going to be just like when people switch to insurance, right?
Yeah.
Someone's going to try to hold this case.
Yes, of course, as long as it's possible.
Exactly. That's my fear.
Okay. Another question: the PCA caregiver and caretaker stays in the same house, but not relative. Possible?
Very.
Absolutely, we answered that question. Yes, the Zakir Hassan.
Look,
yes.
as long as what you're doing is part of the Medicaid waiver program, I think it's very possible.
Okay. Mohammed Muzammil Hussain said, when I submit clock in and clock out, it came back denied. But why? আপনাকে PPL এর সাথে যোগাযোগ করতে, you have to contact PPL.
You have to contact PPL. And listen, nobody should be afraid to contact them. Look, this is where you're going to get all the answers.
Correct.
Okay? This is developing. Like, nobody's been through this yet.
Right. আমি সিম্পল একটা কথা বলি, মানে আপনাকে পিপিএল এ যোগাযোগ করতে হবে। পিপিএল এ যোগাযোগ করার জন্য কোনো ভয় পাওয়ার দরকার নেই। They are not tigers. They're not going to eat you alive. They
Correct. Listen, I don't want anyone to be scared. Should not be a scary situation. This is a learning opportunity for everybody.
যত তাড়াতাড়ি আপনি মুভ করবেন এখানে, আপনি অনেক কিছু শিখবেন। And they actually email. They're very good in email. If you have an issue, send an email, contact them. There's a place you can contact
very
them.
easy.
And they will contact you.
Of course.
আপনারা এত ভয় পাওয়ার কিছু নেই। আমরা জানি in Bangladeshi community, we used to in certain things. If nobody picks up the phone call, we just go to their house right away. So that's we are used to. But don't worry about this. Email একটু অবস্থান ভালো হবেন. Any last advice for people who are watching for the taxes?
Look, taxes coming, right? The end is coming up. Look, anyone who doesn't think they're going to have the paperwork together, we spoke about filing extension. It's easy. It shouldn't be a problem. For the people who are business owners, if you don't have all your stuff together, look, just file the extension, okay? I always recommend that anyways, because look, once the tax season rushes over, you're able to sit down with your CPA and say, okay, what about this? What about this? We can make the best and maximize that income tax.
With that, we're going to end. I'm saying goodbye to you. দর্শক, আপনারা যারা এতক্ষণ অনুষ্ঠানটি দেখতেছেন, আশা করি ভালো লেগেছে। যদি ভালো লেগে থাকে জানাবেন, এবং যে যেখানে থাকবেন ভালো থাকবেন, সুস্থ থাকবেন, নিরাপদে থাকবেন। দেখা হবে পরবর্তী অনুষ্ঠানে। শুভরাত্রি।
TBN 24 টেলিভিশন দেখতে আজই কল করুন 7187776556। লগ ইন করুন www.totalcablebd.com।
নিউ ইয়র্ক থেকে সম্প্রচারিত TBN 24 টেলিভিশন বিশ্বজুড়ে বাঙালির কণ্ঠস্বর।